lot of spoilers in this episode. There's really no way to get around talking about the crazy things that happen. The first thing I really want to say is hats off to Marvel, hats off to the writers. This episode, for some of its predictability, was still really refreshing. I knew they were going to give us some Sylvie backstory. They gave you some of that in the teaser trailers leading up to episode 4. But a lot of the direction they went, the risks that they took, which may or may not be risks in episode 5 and 6, were really refreshing to kind of keep a change of pace to the story. Now, if you watch the bonus scene, like I said, spoiler heavy, then you know that Loki is not actually dead. He even asks, is this hell? And these other Loki variants say no. But we already kind of get the indication that Mobius is still alive, but you got so many things in this episode. You know, Mobius gets seemingly pruned away. C-20, perhaps she got pruned away as well, we're not sure. B-15 flips. You got a battle in front of the Timekeepers. You got to see Ravonna flip a little bit, so you got a villain reveal. And then this budding relationship between Loki and Sylvie, and then Mobius kind of switching sides here as well before he gets seemingly pruned from the timeline, and then Loki getting pruned from the timeline as well. I didn't think you were actually going to see him again until episode 5 or maybe episode 6, where they give you some hope that he's still around. I thought we got this big 4-episode setup for introducing Sylvie into the MCU, and we were going to get her going forward. That would have been a little bit of a letdown for Tom Hiddleston if that was the end of his character. So I guess maybe I was a little bit taken back as a viewer and drawn into the story, so to speak. But again, hats off to Marvel for keeping me in that moment. Sometimes it's really hard for me to be tricked, or which I guess even makes the episode that much better, because a show about the god of mischief, and I was tricked. Seeing as how it's very hard to trick me sometimes as a moviegoer and an avid fan of movies and plots and student of how these things work. So that was very exciting and very interesting. But the episode was just full of so many of these things. Not as dialogue heavy as the other episodes. There was a lot of action, but even in that, the back and forth with these characters had a point and had a purpose. Still haven't gotten a lot of explanation as to the multiverse, but I'm betting episode 5, even though there's a heavy possibility for some more backstory, is going to deal with these multiversal rules. You're going to actually get to see it played out in the real world rather than seeing what the TVA wants you to see. I actually liked that we did not find out who the TVA was, but you're probably going to get that backstory in the form of Ravonna telling Sylvie how the TVA came to be. The Timekeepers being these real-looking people was very interesting. It also lends some credence to the conversations in episode 2 where Mobius says, I believe it because it's what I choose to believe, that there are Timekeepers, even though Loki is questioning it the whole time. And so getting to see them the first time, even in my notes, I wrote down Timekeepers, question mark, real, and then we find out that they're not. They looked a little bit fake, but I kind of thought, well, I guess we're going this direction now. I guess Marvel is taking us in the direction, there's already Celestials, there's already a giant living planet, so why not 3 space lizard looking guys sitting in a tower? It looked every bit of what I kind of thought it might look like, and then to find out that it wasn't real. I got a little worried for a second when Loki is, what I now know, professing his care and concern for Sylvie. I got worried for a second that he had infiltrated her memories somehow on Lamentus, and we were about to flash back to the train where she wakes up and Loki is singing and he's drunk. I thought he was about to kind of do something to her mind, and we were going to realize that he had been playing her the entire time. I think there's still plenty of room for some time loops. I think when we saw Mobius and Ravonna kind of talking and celebrating their victory in her office when she takes the sword, Sylvie's sword, and puts it on her mantle. I thought that moment was very telling as well. I need to go back and look at it. We'll review it in an Easter egg video, but Mobius puts his cup down and he does not use a coaster. Ravonna does not address that. She doesn't say anything to him about it. And you get a couple of views, some upper level views here of that table where you can see or not see the rings. Now maybe they're there, maybe they're faint. I really couldn't see them. There was, maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. I'm actually going to have to go back and zoom in on it in high definition and see if I can see it. But I didn't see the rings. Ravonna is talking to Mobius. There was a lot more straightforwardness, I think, because the reveal was coming, that Ravonna knew more that she was letting on, and not just that Mobius was kind of poking at her with his detective skills. And then obviously we get that reveal later on that Ravonna knows more than she's letting on. But who she's working for and who she's covering for now, the bigger reveal and the bigger thing that I think is gonna come out in episode 5. And then what happens in episode 6, this is definitely keeping me on my toes, predicting episode by episode what's gonna happen. I think there's some things plot-wise that have to happen, but as far as where this story goes and how they're going to explain it, I think episode 5 is going to give us a whole bunch of stuff to just fresh and new that really episode 3 didn't. Now, having said that, I told you guys I didn't like episode 3. I was going to reserve my judgment on episode 3 until episode 4. I maintain now episode 3 was rough, pointless. If only to get us to the Nexus event, which is what this episode is called, where Loki and Sylvie have this moment, and I think that moment where they connect, and it was a major Nexus event where time changes, and you saw that with the Red Line. When they come together, bad things are going to happen, or perhaps good things, depending on, if the TVA is obviously lying to us, then the two of them coming together changes things, maybe for good, finally. I would like to believe now that, obviously I didn't really believe the TVA was all it was cracked up to be, but that splitting the sacred timeline is not necessarily this big, crazy, scary thing that the timekeepers would have us believe. That maybe the timekeepers died a long time ago, and that somebody fashioned these android timekeepers to kind of keep the peace, so to speak. And maybe that happened in the 70s, because our TVA bureau seems to have future tech, but it's also kind of stuck in the 70s. Just like Mobius in his mind is kind of stuck in the 90s. So how all this plays out, I think we're going to get a lot of that. But coming off that tangent for a second, the way that episode 4 played out, they didn't have to cut that episode the way they cut it. They didn't have to leave us on what wasn't even really a cliffhanger in episode 3. So a pretty weak episode in episode 3, but episode 4 got me back on track. It was really what I needed to keep the story going in my mind, and they gave you so much. Definitely couldn't get any of that in episode 3, but some of that dialogue and that story needed to happen in episode 3, but I think you could have ended it maybe with them about to die on Lamentus before the doors open, right as the doors open maybe, and they step through those doors, where you see that Nexus event moment as Loki and Sylvie kind of connect. Not sure how I feel about the Loki being in love with himself, although it is very on the nose for a narcissist. It makes sense. It fits his character. Not sure what that means or what that's going to mean for the timeline. Maybe, I don't know. You could wrap your mind around that and kind of have an moment if you wanted to. But it was interesting for his character. Neither one of them are supposed to exist now, so I guess all bets are off. It doesn't really matter what happens to them. But I'm excited to see what comes next. especially with the bonus scene, the Loki variants. There was a lot of Easter eggs in that one shot of the Loki variants. And Richard E. Grant, who was teased as a character in the show, even right down to the subtitles, they didn't show you his name or who he was. Even when they showed you his face, is a well-known actor and has been around for a long time, and we kind of got to see where he pops up. Now, what they do with that in episode 5 is going to be really awesome. It is following the storyline, some of the storyline from the Agent of Asgard comic run. Some other people pointed that out to me on some Facebook groups and some different things, pointed me towards that. I didn't actually know that comic variant existed. It's a really cool comic run, has a lot of really good art in it, a really great story, really inventive, and it has a lot of good character development for Loki as well. So check that out and dive into some of that if you want to. But it gives some of those King Loki type ideas and these different guys that Loki comes across, and particularly in that bonus scene, if you want to check that out. The other TVA tool that we hadn't seen up until this point, that being the time cell, where Loki gets trapped in his memories, seemed like a fitting way to explain what happens to variants when they, obviously we know that a lot of them get memory wiped and turned into agents of the TVA, but what, from the TVA's perspective, what happens to variants whenever they get taken out of the timeline? Do they get pruned? Okay, they're just gone forever. Although with what we know from the bonus scene, when people get pruned, are they actually dead, or do they go to some other reality? But when Loki, from the TVA perspective, as a variant, gets locked in prison in the TVA is a time cell, which is just him reliving a memory over and over and over again. And you can see him trying to overcome that and trying to explain, right down to the point that he has to admit who he is and what he is to Lady Sif, which it was awesome getting to see Jamie Alexander again. That was really cool. She's popped up several times, and I know that was a fun role for her to get to pop up in. It was cool to get to see her in the MCU again, especially after not being around for so long. And then Loki getting to share with her this moment that, she always didn't like Loki in the movies, and then to have this moment, even if it was manufactured from his memories or from a TVA tool, that he was a narcissist, he was always going to be alone. The reason he did those things is because he was scared of being alone. Like, all those things were really cool character development and a really interesting way to do that. And we learned something about the TVA as well. And so they're giving you little pieces. There was more world building in that episode than there was in episode 3, and to some degree episode 2, because you got to see, them bouncing to different places. You got to see them in different rooms and different aspects of the TVA. You got to get some more character development. People kind of changed roles, and it happened really quick. And so there was some action. There was a lot of good dialogue. This was a meatier episode, had a lot of moving parts. And so for a lot of people, this is going to be a more interesting episode, especially because it gave you some twists, and the cliffhanger was more satisfying. And there were some things that happened that I thought, oh, well, now Mobius is gone. Well, now Loki's gone. What are they going to do? And then the bonus scene afterwards, just, again, there are some iconic shots in the MCU. And Falcon and the Winter Soldier, an iconic shot was John Walker with the shield, holding the bloody shield. Sam Wilson in the new Captain America outfit. WandaVision, you had some interesting shots, some iconic shots with Vision facing off against White Vision, and Wanda in her full Scarlet Witch outfit, those kind of things. The bonus shot at the end with the different versions of Loki was definitely an iconic Marvel shot, and it was really cool, and it was one of those moments, which I think Marvel is so good at pulling off. So tell us what you guys thought. This was just a fun episode. It was really great to watch. A lot of different things in it. I'm really excited to do our Easter egg video here in a couple of days that will come out right along with our prediction video for episode 5. It's going to be really crazy. We have 2 episodes left. I think episode 5 is going to give us a whole lot of stuff, and then episode 6 is going to have to maybe wrap it up in some way. Might be another 2-parter where we get another cliffhanger, but I think there's a lot of possibility and a lot of random ways they can go, and I'm really hoping that they keep it fresh and exciting and do something new there rather than kind of going down a beaten path. It's anybody's guess, but there's a whole lot of things that they can do, and I'm really excited to see where they go with it. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe, turn on notifications so when we drop new content just like this, you'll be the first to know about it. If you're not subscribed, please do so, and if you are, share this video all across the multiverse, and we'll see you guys next time.